All right, we are out here with Cooper, and it's week 2 of the puppy program. So we're just going to review some of his skills. Oh boy, he's hungry. So just because I've noticed this on week 2, I didn't really notice it last week, but I believe we have littles in the house. Not that little. Your kiddos are a little bit older, so this might not be an issue. But until he's a little bit older, sometimes hungry hippo puppies, which Cooper is one currently, they tend to be a little bit chompy when they're taking food. So if you are struggling with how hard he's taking food from your hand, make sure that you are good. And I'm just going to make sure he's not jumping on me as I move around. Good boy. Make sure that we are holding. Can you make sure that this is on the camera when I come up here? Palming the food. So none of my fingers are in the way. So if we feed a dog kind of duckbill style, then my fingers kind of make a big target. Case in point. But if I kind of hold the food as so, he's going to have to kind of use his tongue a little bit more to get that food. Good. And we can actually warm up before training. He did just have lunch, so he should be more satiated. But as I present this food, I'm only going to release it when I stop feeling those teeth. Good, right there. So that might be an exercise that we work on with him if that's an issue. Yep, he's kind of using teeth. No, thank you. That's my hand. Good. And I'm going to release it when I feel that tongue happening. Good. Again, that's probably happening just because he's most likely going through a growth spurt. He needs a little bit more calorie intake probably. I call it the hungry hippo stage. Perfect. Okay. And then so we're just going to, whoop, that was my finger. We're going to review food luring. Good. Perfect. All right. So our goal today was just to work on the obedience end of things because we focus so much on socialization. We don't want to leave out the good stuff, right? We want our dogs to be really obedient. It's not something I strive to focus on at this age because all of that can come along a little bit later. The things that we can't fix or change after a certain time is how our dogs feel about new people, places, things, animals. So this is what we call the critical period of socialization. Between like 8 and 16 weeks is really the critical period. And then up to 20 weeks too, we can still really want to work on that. And so we're just making sure that we're getting those skills. And he's like a little bit outside of that window, just a little bit. So we do want to make sure that that's our priority, but because he's eclipsing into adolescence, obviously now is the time to start working on our obedience. So we talked about our marker system over the weekend. We have the good reward marker, which is going to indicate, hey, we like what you're doing. Please keep doing what you're doing. We noticed that Cooper already knows sit, position, and we've captured down with him pretty well at some point because we've seen him do it. Let's see. Might be a little bit funky with his harness and leash on, so I could take his harness off in just a second. Good. Okay. Perfect. It's right here. So we're going to start to apply the marker system. Ding. You missed it. There you go. So the good reward marker will tell him we like what he's doing, that he should keep doing what he's doing. And now we're going to try to use our release word or our clicker to release him out of behaviors. And we can start to potentially name the down position that we've captured with our food lure. So you'll hear me say in this program, we don't name it till we love it. So until he's really popping into that position, good, pretty quickly, okay. I want to hold off on really calling it anything. Otherwise, we're just kind of like Charlie Brown's teacher. I say that a lot too. I said that in River's video, right? We're just adding mouth noise that he's not really aware of what it means, right? So until I can get that position really solid, good, it's getting there. Okay. I want to make sure that I just do that first. So what I'm going to focus on here while we wait for him to, there it is, nice. Oh, almost. He's getting there. I'm going to make sure that I'm releasing him. So far, I've been releasing him with his release word. Okay. Perfect. I can also release him with my clicker. Good. Now we're getting some oil in the fire. whatever the saying is. Oil in the fire, pots in the pan, pots in the fire, irons in the fire.
There you go.
Good boy. Okay. Nice. I think we're just about, and I'm also luring him straight down from a stand just to see if I can make sure that I want to make sure he's really comfortable getting his body into that position. I also like to make sure of that because I don't want the sit. We have this tendency to ask our dogs to sit then down, and then that's what down becomes. Down becomes offering sit, and then you have to re-cue your dog to go down, so they don't actually know what down means in that case. So I want to make sure that I can get him to do that from a standing position as well and bypass SIT. So we're going to work on that. Wait. So I'm not releasing the food that I have to the floor right now until that little this bum. There you go. Okay. Hits the floor. I'm going to do that a couple times until he becomes more fluent with that. He's like, I know sit. Good, and I really like these. I'm interrupting it by talking, of course, because I want to narrate what's happening, but I like these moments when I'm quiet and I allow the dog to figure it out. So I really don't, one of the pitfalls of training is that we as humans have the tendency, to overhelp the dog in these situations where they're not quite sure. There's like a miscommunication or they're still in the learning phase. And it's really important to actually like stop and let a dog like process. And a lot of times when dogs are thinking, they look like they're ignoring us. They typically kind of like stare off into the distance, or they might even turn their head, or they just stare. So we have the tendency to go, oh, they're not listening. And we just kind of like show them and then like do more and more and more and more. And it doesn't create a dog that can like critically think and process for themselves. Like, what should I do? What's the next step? They just kind of sit there and they learn to kind of wait for, it's like kind of called learned helplessness almost. They kind of just learn to wait for you to re-cue them. So I want to make sure that I give lots of time for puppies to think. I'm gonna try releasing him with my clicker. Perfect. All right. Good boy. Good. I want to make sure I'm using my marker. So good means I like what you're doing. Please keep doing what you're doing. But I want to practice saying it with and without food. Good. Okay. Perfect. Nice. Now, the next step to this is fading the food out of the luring into the position. Dogs, especially dogs like Cooper at his age with his like food interest levels, we'll call it, they can become a little bit dependent on the food. So when we want them to learn that verbal cue for down, good boy, they kind of start to wait for, they think food is the part where your hand comes out with, down is the part where your food comes out with hand. Talking's not on my list of things I can do well today. Okay. So they wait for the food, right? And so we want to make sure that that's not happening either. So we're going to start practicing taking the food out of our hand. And I'm just going to use like my food lure motion without the actual food and just kind of wait it out. Good boy. Now the food comes. Good boy. I want to say my good reward marker with and without food. Good. Okay. I'm going to release him and I'm going to toss a piece of food. Eventually, I'm not going to necessarily feed him when I release him with my release word. But for right now, I will, so that he learns that okay means you can get up and go. All right. At this point, I did forget to start adding in the word, but this is, he's fluent enough where I can start asking him with the verbal cue as well. I'll do that on the next rep. But right now I'm essentially using a cue. I'm using a visual cue with that invisible food lure, that non-existent food lure. Good, and this is one of those moments that we want to sit there and wait. I want to see if he's got some critical thinking skills here. Good boy. Nice. It's very tempting to give him the answer right there. And again, that just kind of creates a dependent dog that doesn't think for themselves. Okay, perfect. So we want him to be a smart boy that gives us hard-working answers. Perfect. So I'm going to do a couple of these with the food lure again and start introducing that verbal cue. Hey, Coop. Down. Perfect. I'm going to say it, then show it. Good. Try releasing him with my clicker. Good. Down. Show it. I most likely want to try to use that cue word without food in my hand. Otherwise, he's not going to even, I'm definitely going to be, okay, Charlie Brown's teacher there. And he's not going to, nothing exists as long as I have food in my hand. Down. Help him out. Good boy. Good. Very good. I'm going to give him a nice handful for that. Good job. Okay. Nice. Down. Give him a little bit of help. Yeah, you got it. Good boy. Good job. Good boy. Perfect. Good job. Nice. All right. So the next step to this would be to start doing it from a standing position, which for some dogs can really change the whole picture. So one thing you'll hear me say a lot is that the stinky part about dog training, but besides your stinky treats, actually your treats aren't that stinky, but it's that dogs don't generalize well. So something that we do like this, as soon as I change one aspect of it, like the environment or the types of distractions we're working around, or the fact that I'm standing and not sitting, can make it so that the whole behavior almost changes. The whole context of the behavior changes. So the goal is, that's part of the learning phases, which we talk about in the partner program, but we want to proof the behavior in many different kinds of contexts. Good boy. Perfect. So that it becomes full circle. Down means down, even if I ask you from 100 feet away while juggling flaming bowling pins and riding a unicycle and blah, blah, blah. So it happens outside, inside, at the neighbor's house, at the vet, in the car, all those places. Down means down. So we're going to try that out. Cooper, down. Help him out a little bit with that food lure without food, which is actually now a hand signal. Good. Whoops. Help him get back into that position. Yeah, so for before, we were asking him and we were nice and close, but as soon as we start to move away with the food, that becomes the next part of how we proof this behavior. So I'm just indicating here with my little food lure. My boot squeaked. I swear that was my boot. Good, good. Now, shortly here, we're going to want to make sure we don't feed him for breaking and getting back into position. Good. Whoa. Good. I want to make sure when I go to feed him, if he tries to meet me, I remove the food and get him back into position with this food hand signal. Good. As soon as he starts to kind of move, so he was stuck right there. He's like, I just want the food to come back. What the heck do I have to do to make that food come back? So as soon as he starts to do something other than just kind of stare, and he starts to try, I'm going to start to move my food hand closer to him. Yeah, and so this is going to be helpful for him, the way that we're doing this, because it's going to have him, he's very much like going into like a certain kind of drive for that food that's overriding his like prefrontal cortex almost. So that drive for food is almost like overriding his good critical thinking skills. Good. So we have to work on that. That's impulse control. Good. 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 So I want to make sure I keep a high. Whoops. So the food's going to go away. I'm going to try to get him back into that position. I'm using his leash a little bit with a tiny like fingertip pressure down towards the floor. Good. That's called a tactile pressure, which we'll talk about later on, but I'm just applying it here. As soon as he starts to move towards the floor, he's just a bit stuck. He's literally staring at the food right now in my hand, so I'm gonna kind of like get that out of the picture a little more. Good. Whoop, he gave up. So we've gone a little bit backwards, right? In our training session. Totally normal. This happens. I'm going to get to a good spot with him, and I'm going to put it away. We want to end on a high note. Yeah, the food doesn't, yeah, he just wants that food, right? So again, I do think that we could potentially, this tells me a lot of things. With puppies, right? How long is this session going on?
17 minutes.
Yeah, so he needs more of like a 10-minute session, most likely. I'm going to be on the lookout for a moment of brilliance, which we've had. Good yawn. We've had many. And so the next training session I do with him, there we go. Oh, you were so close. I'm going to be making sure that I end this on a high note and not when he's kind of falling flat and going in the opposite direction. That yawn he just gave out a second ago indicates that, we call that a calming signal. That can indicate a dog is either going away from or towards stress. And so I think we are entering good stress category for him. And that's not what we want for training. So as soon as I get a little bit of where I want to go here, I'm going to reintroduce the food in the picture just a little bit. We'll meet in the middle here. I'm not going to give it to you because I think we can get you to do this skill. Good. That's good. All right, perfect. Then I'm going to try to interject some juice. Okay. Okay, there we go. I'm going to use my clicker for this because now we want to re-motivate Cooper. And the clicker can help us do that. And in fact, if I was smarter, might not be running on all cylinders today myself, I could have used the clicker during our training session to insert some more enthusiasm as well. So I wonder if I can get him a little bit more excited about this. Good. Yes, good boy. I'm thinking we're going to get better responses now. And that's actually one of the most awesome things we can use the clicker for. Yep, right there. Silly me. This, of course, will help us when we're a little stuck. Good job. Nice, good. We're going to end it there. So that was great. We've got some work to do, but this is kind of a great example of why we don't focus so much on obedience, because they have such short attention spans. We're not going to get very far with a puppy. So it's important that we sprinkle it in to their day throughout the day and not drill it like math homework. But he's doing really great with that. Clearly, he's going to be getting the hang of it in the next couple sessions. So he's doing great. Good job, Cooper.